In the park across the road from my place, just 200 metres from my front door, there's this small, bush-clad hill with a gravel track that winds its way up, steeply in parts, to a trig station at the summit. From the bottom to the top, it's just 29 metres of elevation gain. In December 2022, my plan was to climb this hill 306 times on my mountain bike. You see, I wanted to find out what it took to climb the equivalent height of Mount Everest, which is 8,849 metres. So to achieve that over the month of December, I had to climb up and down on average 10 times a day. This is my take on the popular but heinously difficult thing in cycling and in running called Everesting, which is where you just pick a hill and you ride up and down it in one session until you've climbed the cumulative height of Mount Everest. It's a simple idea, but it's really difficult to achieve. The world record is 6 hours 40 for men and just over 8 hours for women. The average time, and nobody that does this is average, is around 24 hours. And lots of people attempt it and lots of people fail. So I've looked at having a go at that, but I need to be much, much fitter. And at 2 meters tall and well north of 100 kilograms, let's just say I'm not the ideal candidate. So out walking the dog one morning, climbing my hill in the park, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool to do an Everesting here, this close to home? And that was closely followed by the thought of why not stretch the challenge out and do it over a month? That'll get me out riding, and I love a challenge. And it ticks that box that says you don't need to travel halfway around the world to find adventure. You can literally find it, if you're looking for it, right on your doorstep. I've followed Englishman Alistair Humphreys with his micro adventures and Aussie Bo Miles with his backyard adventures, and both of them have done huge adventures in the past, but are now focusing on smaller, closer to home adventures that still give them that same buzz. So here was an idea for an adventure that was just outside of a stone's throw away from my home. I say stones because they're relevant here because I use them to count laps. When I get to the top in the video, you'll see me reaching into my back pocket to drop a stone. Anyway, that's how the idea of what I'm calling long Everesting was born. And I think it's an idea that will appeal to a much broader range of people because it brings it within more people's reach, while still being a really interesting and true challenge. And of course, it's a bit daft, which has always got an appeal for me. So for the month of December, I've ridden up and down the hill at every opportunity, multiple sessions a day sometimes, before work, at lunchtime, after evening meetings. It turns out, and this shouldn't be a surprise, that Mount Everest is a bloody big mountain. I actually ended up doing 346 climbs, which saw me achieve the Everest goal, and then I carried on a bit more to tick over 10,000 metres of climbing for the month. All on my little hill in the park across the road. Cool, eh? So how did I find it? Well, it's a challenge with its own flavour. Actually, just simply fitting it into your life is difficult at times. And while you can pick a nice day to have a crack at the full Everesting, or even do it on your indoor trainer, you can't get ideal weather for a month, so the weather plays a part. In fact, the weather saw me crash quite hard in the wet when my hand slipped on the handlebars on a descent. And there's also the cumulative fatigue of doing this day after day after day, on you and on your bike. I actually snapped a chain one day, which saw me rushing off to the shops to get a new one. There's also that relentless schedule of 10 a day that you've got to keep up with. And when you get behind, you really feel that pressure. But on the plus side, it gets you out riding your bike when sometimes you don't really feel like it. But you always feel the better for it after you've done it. Okay. And you get fitter. I got noticeably quicker and stronger, and the number of climbs I could manage increased as the challenge progressed. This is no shock really, but it's always good to find out that human bodies are very good at adapting. And with the length of climb that I chose, it means I was essentially doing long interval training for a month. So it's going to be interesting to see how that equates to general bike fitness once I've had a few days off. I'm fairly certain it'll mean a big boost in fitness. And not to be sneezed at, but people notice me doing this. And so being out in the community and interacting with people adds to the flavour. So there you have it, long Everesting. A completely personal challenge that turned out to be much more interesting than I imagined it would be. So anyway, that's my story. I hope it resonates with some people. Get out there and give it a go if you think you'd like to.